Right on, guys. Well, thank you very much for your time. Today, as Mike said, we are going to be talking about my 3 C's, clarification, cordials, and carbonation. I feel like these things make the best tasting highball. And today we're going to go through each process together. You guys are going to visually be able to see lemon juice being clarified here. We'll talk about the history of carbonation, the history of cordials, and then we're going to make a highball 2 different ways. Our individual process here with just a small little soda bottle, and then in a corny keg for larger applications. My goal here today is to share some knowledge about Johnnie Walker, but also kind of take these really highbrow concepts, clarification, cordials, and carbonation, and kind of just bring them down to everybody can do this stuff. This is not like a top 50 bars only. This is not something that costs a lot of money. You'll see with all the products that I have here today, we're going to make a crystal clear carbonated highball that costs a fraction of what maybe somebody else has told you about. Now, quick show of hands, is any of this coming off, or are we familiar with, have you guys seen some clarified cocktails? Probably seen some milk punches out there, right? Now, milk punch is an other way to use to make a clarified drink. It's using the milk curds to create a filter that are going to pull out all of the colors and solids, and that's a great way of creating a large batched clarified cocktail that is delicious and approachable. But sometimes you don't want to just use all of your ingredient in the milk punch. And maybe you want to use this ingredient in other ways, for instance a clarified margarita, where you have clarified lime juice, agave syrup, and tequila, that instead of shaking now, because the different densities of the different juices, that's why we shake a lemon and a citrus cocktail. It's because it's lighter, it's got solids in it, and we want to incorporate the sugars and the tequila all together. When you clarify stuff, you don't have to shake. You can actually stir these things, which is kind of cool. And part of getting that clarified juice, have you guys heard of you have to use a centrifuge to clarify it, right? You guys familiar with Dave Arnold's, his book Liquid Intelligence? Some of you guys have seen this. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest grabbing it. It's a really, really great book and has a lot of fun stuff. Obviously, mine's been used a little bit because I love it and I really respect the man and what he's done. Dave Arnold was the first person to actually clarify juice in a method that was usable at a restaurant with his brother-in-law, Wiley Dufresne's. So WD-50 was a very pivotal bar and restaurant in New York food scene in the aughts, the 2000, 2010s. And Dave's whole thing is using a centrifuge. And that forces the solids out of the liquid and leaving only basically the citric acid and the lemon oils in there. But did you guys know you do not need a centrifuge? That's what we're here to talk about today, is that there are these other products out there, specifically like pectic enzyme, Pectin-X, which is available at Modernist Pantry, which is what everybody kind of forces you through. Pectin-X is a great product, but you can get this for $20 and it's about a pound. And you'll see how little I'm about to use just to clarify. Only 250 milliliters, but imagine this half teaspoon clarifies an entire gallon of juice. So this is serious cost cutting if you're really interested in clarifying en masse. That's the other benefit of this right here too, is that we're not only just clarifying, yes, we're just clarifying for this little bit, but you can do 10, 20 liters at a time. You treat it, you put it in your fridge overnight, and you're left with a crystal clear solution. So this is the first part of it. We're adding Pectin-X and Kiesel Sol to the solution here, my lemon juice solution. And and that's going to start the procedure here. Generally, we only use about 2 milliliters per liter, but you can always go over. I'm going to give it a quick shake to incorporate it. Generally, we would use a spoon to stir it. But what we're going to be watching here as I'm talking, you're going to see this juice break. So when we're doing a clarified milk punch, we're always looking for the break. It's when the curds separate from the whey, and that's when we know that, okay, this is on the right path. It's a very similar scenario here with the Pectinex and the Kesosol and the chitosan and all that stuff. And yeah, little debrief there. This is some of, it's in terribly small print, but I apologize for that. This is some of the things that we're going to be using today. And a lot of it I'll go over, and it is so easily accessible. I mean, like, you could order all of this today, have it at your front doorstep tomorrow, and be clarifying tomorrow afternoon. Like, it's just that easy to elevate, or just to try it and fool around and make up something new. I'm in the camp of everybody having all of the same tools and learning how to use them together, because who knows who's going to luck into creating like the next Coca-Cola or the next, crazy thing that everybody's going to want. And I personally want to enjoy that, especially when it comes to food and beverage. It's about creating really, really delicious things that we all can enjoy. This is a quick summary of kind of what we're going through today. Clarification, what I'm droning on and on about right now. How they're used, what they're used for. One of the specific uses that we are going to talk about are cordials. It's a super old thing. Cordials, believe it or not, were originated in the 1600s. Well, I'll get into that in a little bit. And then tips and tricks on carbonating. Again, so the equipment that I have in front of me, it does look a little daunting, but it's so easy to use. And I'm going to actually ask some of you guys to come on up and assist me in some of it, and you'll see how easy it is. For each time we treat this, by the way, it's like a 15-minute set time. So every time you treat it, you're going to just wait 15 minutes before the next set, and we'll start to see some changes. But in the meantime, going on some about the benefits of clarification. Like I said earlier, a clarified cocktail does not need to be shaken to incorporate all of those flavors. Clarified cocktail is optically beautiful. We've seen those milk punches. They're pretty epic. And the other huge benefit of a clarified cocktail is that it's perfect ingredient for carbonating. So carbonation is a fickle little bird, but what you want in that drink is that everything to be clear. And not everything needs to be clear. We've seen cloudy, carbonated things. Think of like a hazy beer, right? Hazy beer is hazy. It's not perfectly clear, but it has carbonation to it. So carbonation is the ideal way is to have it crystal clear. You look at like Sprite, soda water. That's big, bold bubbles, and it stays in solution for a really long time. Every time like you see these, like you see how murky this is, think about those little waxes, those little solids in there, bouncing around inside of the solution, taking that CO2 and breaking it out and creating and letting those bubbles go. When you pour a glass of champagne and you're looking at the glass and you see the bubbles on the side of the glass, that's the CO2 escaping from solution because it's being rattled out of the liquid prison that it's in. This is a small little breakdown of what we're doing right now. It's basically the recipe. This recipe is also in Dave Arnold's Liquid Intelligence. But if you're interested on how we're doing the clarification today, definitely at the very end, I'll bring this back up and everybody can take a quick picture of it, use it at their leisure. This is exactly how I'm using with each ingredient here to make this clear juice. As a proof of concept here, that this is, as you can see, crystal clear, right? We could all say that's crystal clear. This is exactly what I did literally last night and clarified this to perfect clarity. And this morning I just racked it off and This is from a gallon, and I have over 2 liters of product from a gallon. Yes, the return is not going to be as great, but I think with the work output that you would get, it's easily worth its while, if not more worth its while. If some of you have worked a Spinzall or a centrifuge, you have to babysit the thing. You have to be there. And if you're running programs, you know that like hours, having somebody on the clock, that costs money. This, it doesn't cost any money. You can just train up one person to do, a big 6-liter batch, treat it up, put it away. Next morning, rack it off, and you have a ton of clear juice. It's great in batches and in the clarification and all these cocktails. And quite frankly, it's when you pour someone a cocktail that is crystal clear, it's a little shocking. I'm sure some of you guys have seen those milk punches. It's pretty wild. But in between all of this, I also am the Johnnie Walker ambassador. And to keep everybody a little bit enthused and following along with me, we do have some black label and blue label in front of you guys. It should be at its specific locations on there. I know you guys have a lot of tasting today, but this is a great way to prime your palates for what we're going to enjoy later. Everybody's familiar with Johnnie Walker, right? Small little startup brand from around 1820. just a squeaker, and you can kind of already see the break happening. I know some of you guys can't see it back there, but some of these people up here might be able to see it. Literally the citrus is breaking apart. But black label, sweet, spicy, smoky, and smooth. It's distilleries from all over Scotland. If you want to go ahead and get a taste of any of that black label while I'm just going on about this stuff. Just to keep it fun, because drinking scotch and learning is not a bad deal. Not a bad deal. What do we do with this spent clarified juice, and like why? So we have it. How long does it last, right? I'm sure it's like, okay, we have paracones where we're fresh pressing our juice. Does this extend the shelf life? And like, I technically, as far as it from molding or getting you sick or anything like that, the clarified juice will last a little longer. But just like regular juice, it's oxidizing. The longer that it's sitting, the more the oxygen's touching it, and you're losing that flavor. So I always say, keep it for 2 weeks, and then figure out what else you're going to do with it. And one of those great things that you can do with it is create a cordial, which is what is in that bucket that I showed you guys today, which is what we're going to be using to create our highball in a little bit. Cordials, believe it or not, were created or originated at around 1600, so 400 years ago. And these cordials were actually used to flavor spa water. At around 1600, people figured out that these mineral baths across Europe were good for your body, good for your soul, and they would sell the mineral water. There's a famous place in Germany, actually, where the water comes out already carbonated, and they would use it as like a medical thing. But as a way to make it more appealing and more tasty, they would add a cordial to it. And what they did is they take fruit juices and sugar, blend them together, boom, cordial, right? And that idea has been with us through the soft drink worlds from then all the way until soda drinks and all that stuff were created. They used cordials. And a cordial is a great way to not only extend the life of your clarified juice that you just made, but also it's a great addition to a lot of cocktails. So, a gimlet, a lime lemon gimlet, unbelievable. These highballs, it's a great addition to a highball, adding extra flavor. But because it is taking your clarified juice, sugar, some acids to balance it out, and putting that over heat, you're also kind of killing off any negative bacteria in there, allowing that shelf life to be way, way extended, which is really important in what we do. But when you add that heat, we're also adding we could add another ingredient to this. Because heat is an extraction method, right? When we make a cinnamon syrup, usually we put sugar, water, cinnamon, overheat, boom, that heat extracts that cinnamon flavor. Same concept here. You're able to make these compound, very complex, unique flavor profiles by taking that spent citrus juice that you were either going to throw away or weren't going to use. For what we're using today, I added lime peels, put it over heat with sugar and a little bit of citric acid, and we now have a lemon lime cordial. But it is endless, an endless template. I was going to use green peppercorns. You can add that to that. You could put teas in there, and you have like a tea citrus cordial. The world it's so grand and endless with the flavors that you can match here that your book is never ending, which I find very important, especially when we're trying to create new and unique cocktails. And that's a little bit on the cordial and how it's unique in creating these different cocktails. Here's my specific cordial recipe that we added to here, to this one right here that we'll be tasting in a little bit. And yeah, any questions on the cordial clarification? Yes?
Does a Kielce salt need to be refrigerated after? That's a liquid one, right?
Kiesel salt does not. Chitosan does, which is our next treatment in about like 5 minutes. That also liquid? That is also a liquid, but the chitosan is a product from algae that will eventually go bad. It loses its potency if it's not refrigerated, and the chitosan is one of the 2 products that I always suggest to get from Modernist Pantry. They have a vegan thing. Usually chitosan is made from shrimp shells. This is from algae. So it's vegan, it's appropriate for it, and it does go bad, but it's one of the ingredients that is there. That is that. Any other questions about this? I know there's a lot of information. I know this is something, if you haven't touched on it, it's kind of tough to grasp your head around it. Please feel free to ask.
Yeah, what you said, I do know he sent me this recipe and I've used it in so many cocktails, but once you do it, it's super easy. But it is a lot of information at first.
Yeah. And we're almost to our point where we're going to add the chitosan. We'll talk about that ingredient a little bit more. And so on top of all that, these ingredients are going to take making the highball, what we're all here to do, and well, what I'm here to do and talk to you guys about, that much more flavorful and unique. Believe it or not, the highball was a cocktail that goes way, way back, even farther than the 1800s. It actually stems out of like the 1700s. 1760 is when Joseph Priest actually created carbonated water. So before that, we didn't have carbonated water. After that, we had this. And the first cocktail that happened around the 1780s was the phosphor and soda, phosphoric acid, Angostura bitters and soda. That was the very first technical cocktail. Shortly after that, we started adding, gin and tonic syrup for the sailors for our gin and tonic, and also brandy and soda. That was the most popular cocktail pre-1865. After 1865, anybody aware what happened at that time? The difference from 1865 to the phylloxera beetle. So this little beetle that was used, we're all aware of that story, right on. That beetle shook up the industry greatly, so much so that it actually helped catapult Johnnie Walker into the world that we know it as today. It stopped all brandy, wine, cognac, anything coming out of France, and allowed, so much so that the Scots even changed their own laws to allow this new still to be part of the blended whiskey world. It's called the column still. At the time, it was the coffee still. And this is what helped create Johnnie Walker. So Johnnie Walker, if y'all didn't know, is a blended whiskey. It's a blend of grains such as corn and wheat, and then single malt, which is barley. And at 1865, there was such a, there was no wine. Everybody was so thirsty that they allowed Johnnie to take grain whiskey and single malt and blend it together so that they have more surplus of whiskey to send throughout the entire world. And that allowed us to be in the most popular cocktail in the world at the time, which was Scotch and soda right after that. And really wish, I'm sure, as a matter of fact, the Schweppes company, which had ginger ale or ginger beer, was one of the major importers of Johnnie Walker during that time, and hence because how delicious is a Johnnie and ginger. Now we're about to use the chitosan. As we touched on earlier, chitosan is a unique product. It is, these are all wine finning products, by the way. I should have gone over that earlier. And what they're used is to take like the yeast and drop it out of solution so that your wine or your beer is clear when it comes out. Usually they'll siphon it off. It's delicious, it's beautiful, and that's what these are used for. We're using it here to take the solids out of our juice. And chitosan is a big proponent of that. What's happening is pectinase, or what have you, is an enzyme that's breaking down the bonds of the waxes and the oils and everything that's in there. Kieselsol is a silica-based product that's like grabbing onto those. Like you think of the Pectinex creating like long strains of cotton. So it's like really fabricated, but the silica comes in with its like points. You think of like a burr that gets stuck in your hair. The silica is like the burr, and it's grabbing onto all of those strands and dropping it out of solution. And now the chitosan is kind of wrapping around that and helping drag it all the way down to the bottom. So we're going to add another 2 mils per liter, but we like to add a little extra here because a little extra does not hurt this scenario. That is the other benefit of this. I mean, I'm being precise here, but I can't stress it enough. This is such a, you just can't go wrong. You can add too much and it won't affect the final product. It's kind of dummy proof in a way. You have to at least hit a threshold, but you can't overdo it, which is nice. Now we're going to start another timer. And that's the chitosan, and then after that we are going to add our final bit of Kieselsol. And that'll be it. And this will just sit and it'll start to striate and separate off, and you don't have to do anything. It just sits in the fridge and it's perfect. It's my favorite kind of work, actually. But let's get into carbonation in a nutshell.
Do you use that size to make that little batch of it?
This thing?
Yeah.
No, I actually just did it in here.
Oh.
I poured it in the Cambro and added all my ingredients and let it sit. Doesn't matter what vessel it's in. This is called a separatory funnel. They're fun to have. They definitely do help with pulling it off, because you can just pull that and the solids will drop out the bottom. But I don't recommend it. It's not really. Who has that much room to spare in a kitchen, right? Silly. But they are fun to look at, which is why I got it. Now, carbonation is, again, an interesting thing. And I'm glad that I'm actually going on after our fellow that just talked about ice, because ice is a key part of carbonation. Not necessarily in the way of making it per se, but in what we're going to be doing it today. But in a nutshell, CO2 is unique. It's different than nitrogen or some of the other gases out there because CO2 is soluble in water. What that means is that CO2 can be dissolved and kept into solution under high pressures, under certain circumstances. The other key factor in creating something carbonated is getting it as cold as possible. Cold is key. And one of the best ways of getting something cold, as bartenders, as we know, is we're going to shake our cocktails to make them really cold. Right? That's you're adding the ice, and this concept is pretty. It's pretty simple, and anybody can do this at home with again these small pieces. So specifically here, I'm going to add a little bit of our cordial, just to prove concept in a single bottle, single serve scenario, and then we'll move on to what it looks like there. But all you need is this. Just a regular spent soda bottle and a carbonation cap. This is about $1.85 or something on Amazon. And you can order it and you have, boom, you have your carbonation container where you can have at home the best carbonated cocktail, or at a bar you can have like a single serve scenario, or you get a big 2-liter bottle, which a lot of people have used at their bars as kind of like the way to create highballs in mass or carbonated cocktails in mass. Is they have a bunch of 2-liter bottles everywhere. And that is definitely a way of doing some great quality control, small batches, highly focused on each one, and that is a way. But I feel like we can do it bigger and we can do it better because that's what we're allowed to do. So here is an ounce. So in the cordial per se, I'm using it as a acid and a sweetener. It's equal parts juice to sugar. So 1 liter of juice into 1,000 grams of sugar. 2 grams of citric acid, as I believe was on the other one. And then that was it. And we, and the peel of 10 limes, or 100 grams of lime peel. And so for this, we're going to add a little bit of water, because that's going to be our soda water. So technically, we're creating our own soda water and carbonating the cordial and carbonating the alcohol. That has a lot of unique properties, because when you carbonate all of those things at once, you get a totally different mouthfeel. You get a totally different flavor profile, because the CO2 is not just like, when you make a Tom Collins at the bar, it's not like vibrantly carbonated, like if you were to take a sip of Topo Chico, right? Topo Chico, huge bubbles all across your palate. This is similar to that, but it's completely carbonated the whole way through. So you're getting all of those flavors at once. Here. Now, with all that being said, there are some things to be wary of when we're carbonating at this level. Just to be responsible, it is important to talk about how when you carbonate the alcohol, when you carbonate all these things, the CO2 does bond to the ethanol. CO2 doing that will bypass the blood-brain barrier a lot faster. So a lower ABV cocktail such as this, which is about like 9-10%, will get you tipsy a whole lot faster than just like a soda water and Johnnie and lemon juice, for instance. And that's because the CO2 is actually attached to the ethanol and will get through into your brain a lot faster, which is cool, but also something to keep in mind when making these, trying to be responsible. Now, one thing is that you'll see a lot of people talk about, oh, the lower ABV cocktails are easier to carbonate. I guarantee you, I have carbonated a Negroni, an old fashioned like this. It is totally doable. It's just about getting these things as cold as possible and putting as much CO2 into them as possible. Has anybody tried that? You guys have seen this maybe somewhere or anything like that? Some people have. They've seen this system that I'm about to show. If not, this is really, really cool. You can create carbonated anything this way. And quickly too, which I love. Apologize for the Persian shaker, it's all I could find. So we're going for really cold, where you can almost see the condensation on the outside of the tin. That's the most important part of this whole thing, as I've mentioned ad nauseum now. But I'm going to use, so this thing's really cool. It's like the most diesel mini carbonator that I've been able to find. This thing right here, they use it for aquarium tanks, and it's really, really rad. There are some like small carbonator things that are made for like these corny kegs that beer places sell. They're kind of janky. They're a little cheap. They'll get you by, but this is my preferred method. And these CO2 cartridges, I don't know, like $7 for a pack, and you get like 30 of them, which is crazy. Get a lot of carbonated beverages that way. And yeah, we're tapped in. And then, so what also is really cool is you get like all the way up to like 60 PSI in here, which is important to what we're about to try and do. So we're nice and cold. Let's see if I can manage this. Not so well. There it goes. All right, that in itself was a decent feat. So you can see here, we have a whole bunch of head and this a little bit of solution here. You can take these bottles all the way up to half, but I don't want to go much higher than half because then there's not enough room in there for the CO2 to get into here. Ideally, what's going to happen is I'm going to take 3 times the volume of this right here and smash it into that little liquid right there. So 3 times the volume of this bottle is going to be in CO2 that I then am going to push into that little liquid. We're going to squeeze the bottle as much as we can, take as much of the air out as possible, and like how easy and awesome is this thing, but shake, shake, shake. Some people like to also see it all go out like that. It's fun. There it goes. And then see, we can still see the CO2 emptying into solution. So it's stopped. There's no bubbling, so this thing's full of CO2 gas, which then we can pull off. Let it go. And then we want to release the CO2 as quick as possible. We want to, like that, as quick as possible. Then we're going to let it mellow. And we're going to repeat the solution. Actually, I don't think we need to. I think it's all good right there. So as the foam settles, basically we've forced so much CO2, 60 PSI, into such a small little area right there. And that's going to create, I believe, yep. Oh yeah, we got bubbles. And it's just that simple. For one pour, we can do all of that CO2 there. Now, we've talked about carbonation, how we're getting it in there, what we're using to create this carbonation with the clarified cordial. And this is the recipe that I was talking about, specifically for a larger keg scenario. This will create around 500 ounces. So you can take a large corny keg, which is 640 ounces, and put this recipe in there and force carb the entire thing, which is something that you can't normally do with carbonation. Usually this type of carbonation takes 24 hours sitting in the fridge, or sometimes even longer. Some people like to submerge their vessels in liquid nitrogen or dry ice to get it that cold, but as you can see in proof of concept, you do not need it to get that cold. It needs to stay cold for a certain amount of time, and then it'll be captured in solution. But cold is the key. As we were talking with our ice guy, ice is such an important part of cocktails and in cocktail making. But it has a unique property here in what we're about to do. Now, I can't take 100 ounces of Johnnie Walker and all of these different ingredients and shake them individually and put it in here. It will get too warm, right? So what we're going to do is, or what I've done is I've found out, or didn't find out, if you look, you can see that 1 gram of ice is equal to 1 milliliter of liquid water, because ice expands, but it stays at its weight. No matter, the ice will be larger, the 1 gram of ice will be larger than the 1 milliliter of water, but they both weigh the same and they both contain the same amount of liquid. Now that's a huge part of being able to carbonate large vessels in a way. If we are all in agreement on that, then by that ratio, if I were to take 150 ounces of water and 150 ounces of ice, I will have 300 ounces of water in total, right? We can agree on that? If that's the case, then I can use this as a giant shaker tin now. This is a giant shaker tin, and now our big soda can on top of that, which is extra special. Now, we're going to try and create a carbonated cocktail for everybody here shortly. Now, this is going to be cold. This one? This is a fish tank regulator. This is a fish tank regulator. But for a larger container, we're going to need more CO2. Another fun toy I found is with these things is that they actually have the adapter to fit a larger Sparklets bottle. So that changes things a lot for us. So now instead of just using the small CO2 things, now we have a large Sparklets bottle that can be affixed to these without taking up too much room. So now you have a mobile CO2 scenario, which is pretty fun. And these have more CO2, more power, therefore more carbonation. I don't like it there. Move that down there. Okay. So, and we are now into our last little drop into our little solution here. And that's it. So after this, this will slowly start to develop a little head of clear juice and a little extra for good luck. And shake it up. And that's it. You can, if you were to do all 3 of these steps at home and leave this solution in your fridge overnight, you will have up to half of this container in clear juice that you could then rack off and use in whatever you want. And then the bottom actually makes really, really good lemonade. So you can still use all of it. It's not like the bottom of it is unusable anymore. It's still quite usable, but it's just not clear. So it's not like any of it goes bad. But, so we have our juice that's going to start clarifying. We're going to start seeing a small little head develop there. We're going to pour our cocktail in here, but in the meantime, we have a little Blue Label in front of us as well. Any first-time Blue Label people in here? First-timers with the blue? Okay, all right, right on, welcome. Blue Label is Johnnie Walker's rarest and hardest to find whiskeys, all blended into one. We take all of these different whiskeys and put them into a Solera-style vat, which is pretty interesting. Basically, we're adding whiskey from Pittyvic or from Convalmore or from Brora or Port Ellen into this big wooden vat that then the whiskey sits in there for up to a month, mellowing, kind of mingling with each other, creating one beautiful whiskey, which we know of as Blue Label, and then it gets poured into these bottles. And that's a special little fact about Blue Label, but the most unique thing about it is that we're taking whiskeys that are not around anymore. Pittyvic has been gone since the 70s. Port Ellen just reopened, but it's been gone since the 80s. So these whiskeys you just can't find. There's no way to get a bottle. The Brora that I mentioned in there, for instance, the most recent bottle that sold at auction sold for over 200,000 pounds. And you're getting some of that whiskey in Blue Label. So it is expensive, but it's meant to be a piece of whiskey history that you can't get anywhere else. It is unique. It's not for everybody, just like all whiskeys are not for everybody. Some people like certain things, some people don't. That's why we have all the different flavors, but that's also why we have all these different single malts out there for everybody to enjoy. It is a delicious whiskey. It has its place. But it's unique and special in its own right. So, yeah, that's the blue. And then on that map, just a little stuff to go home with. Each little distillery on there that's been pinpointed are the four corners or the four main distilleries of Johnnie Walker: Cardew, Clynelish, Glenkinchie, Caol Ila. Each one of them gives us a different flavor profile. I always like to see it on a map. It helps me kind of visualize where these flavors are coming from, how it's coming from all different places of Scotland, and then being brought together in basically the Speyside region and bottled and blended and all that jazz. So it's quite a endeavor. But that's Johnnie Blue for you. Now, before I move on to our little demonstration here, are there any questions?
Yes, I had a question about when you said you wanted to release the carbonation as quickly as possible.
Yeah, not as quickly as I did, but yeah.
The question I had essentially was, the way that I was raised up in the industry, when you're doing like champagne service, is like that gentle twist, so you get the hiss. Mm-hmm. So it's a slow, because if you get that pop, then it loosens the bubbles.
Right.
And so to me, it's antithetical to what I understand about carbonation.
It's a little bit of both. So if I didn't have it explode on me, the concept is to release it in one motion. So with champagne, you don't want to just pop it all off, because then it's one extreme motion of all the CO2 gone, right? I wanted to release the CO2 in one motion smoothly, but not as extreme as that. So in this instance, it's a little faster than champagne. Champagne's a little bit more delicate. Not as much CO2 is in champagne as is in here. So this was 60 psi of CO2 forced into that liquid. And the reason why I want to let it go as fast as possible is ideally to keep it cold. So as it warms up, as anything warms up, as we were just talking about, when the ice is cold, it's expanding, but when water warms up, it also expands a little bit, it heats up, it expands, and that pushes the CO2 out of solution. So you've had a soda that sat out for a while, it's gotten warm, not as bubbly, right? So that's what I was trying to keep it from
I
warming
get you.
up
So
too
you
much.
want to essentially get it right to that threshold right before there's any release.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to like slowly pull it off, but the threads jumped out of me. But that's a great question and totally on point to what we're going through here. Anybody? I saw another hand go up. Yes.
You used 3 of the clarifying
Yes.
enzymes or whatever. I feel like I've seen it done with just 2, or is that in the case where you use a centrifuge, or
So
is it just more clear when all 3 are involved?
No, great question. There are certain instances where you only need to use 1. So clarifying strawberry or guava, for instance, you only need to use Pectinex. Or banana is another great example. Those things are high in pectin. Those things want to separate from their waters and get out and pull the starches away. Where you do only need to use Pectinex and Kiesel sol. For citrus, though, because it is, it's the citrus waxes and the pulps are highly bonded to the liquid in there, and it's all broken down into such a small molecule, or not small molecule. It's broken down so small. The 3 wine finning agents really help in clarifying, and I think. We're already starting to get a clear line here, but hopefully at the end you guys will see a more definitive clear line on here. Yeah, those are the 3 ingredients right there. Okay, yes.
When you made yours in the camera,
Yeah.
when you strained it through a coffee filter,
Oh, yeah. So I just took a long tube, it's just like a big long tube, and siphoned it out off the top. And I run that siphon through a filter, but it's like it is such a definitive line that you don't see anything that, like, there's no solids that come off unless you dip it below the line or it sucks off the top. Other unique uses for this, though, too, that I've seen, somebody's made a clear key lime pie. So they took the lime, clarified it, added the sugars and the gelatin, and then there's like an actual pie. No, like a key lime pie is clear. Yeah, it's wild. So again, this all comes from that weird Wiley Dufresne's kind of world. But yeah. And then the other thing, going back to the cordials, people can take, you guys have heard of acid-adjusted juices then? Like where people take pineapple juice and acid-adjust it to lemon or lime? People use that in weird, unique ways as well. But, yeah. What do we all think of blue? Some of us rehashed it. Good? Solid? Still delicious? Right on. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 20, 22. Okay, cool. All right. So for this cocktail that we're going to make together, I'm going to have some people come up and shake this thing for me because it will need some extra assistance. We're going to throw a whole bottle of Johnnie. So ideally here what we're going to do, or what I'm going to get done for you guys today, is we're all going to help shake this like a Ramos Fizz type style scenario. And then we're going to enjoy a carbonated cocktail together. That's pretty rad. So we have that. That's about, a liter is going to be around 32 ounces for every, I kind of build cocktails, usually I have it written down and all that stuff, but I'm going to build it with you guys together. For every single cocktail, there's going to be an ounce of Johnny Black, an ounce of our cordial, which is our juice, our lime juice, our acid, and our sugar. So technically a half ounce of each. If we're going to combine those 2 ingredients, it'll be a full ounce. And then 3 ounces of water, which we're going to force carbonate. It's going to create our own soda water. So 32 ounces there, 32 ounces of the clarified cordial. Boom. Because I felt a little not okay being the only one enjoying a highball up here. So you guys. So like I mentioned, clear is key in this, and it allows you to get the most carbonation into these cocktails. Carbonation stays there the longest, but it doesn't have to be that clear to get some decent carbonation. I mean, like I said, we talked about hazy beers. You've seen other cloudy carbonated things. The one thing that you do have to worry about with a cloudy carbonated thing is, yeah, the CO2 is going to come out of solution faster. It is what it is. And as long as you're okay with that, then who cares? You know, who cares? So 32 times 3 is going to be 96. We're going to cut that in half. So we want 96 ounces of water, but we don't want it to all be water because we need this to be cold, really cold, because we're going to force a lot of CO2 in here. So half of 96 is going to be 48. So we're going to do 48 ounces of water. Boom. 48 ounces of water. And then we got to figure out our ice, right? So I do a little cheeky internet search, 48 ounces to milliliters. And that gives us 1,420 milliliters. What did we say? Milliliters of water is equal to grams of ice, right? 1 gram, correct. So 1420 milliliters in grams is 1420 grams. Very simple. So we're just going to grab, I brought my handy dandy little scale here. Very easy to have. Can't forget it. Boom. That's about 500 grams. And there's our 420. All right. So another big rule is, like I mentioned with the bottle, we want like a decent head in there, right? Because we want the gas to be able to cycle through, get infused, and be forced into that liquid as much as possible. One of the main reasons why this works so well is the thermodynamic properties of forcing a gas into a liquid. When a gas goes into a liquid, it heats up. So that's why we have the ice in there too. It's diluting, it's keeping it cold, it's taking that thermodynamic property and dissipating it, allowing us to force more CO2 in there. So, the fun part. Nice and cold. We can see the frost already starting to form. We have this bad boy at 50 psi. Have you guys worked with a corny keg before? Have you seen these? They are super helpful in large-scale events where you can just put gas on one side, and the other side you can have like a tap system. That's what they're made for. They're made for beer tap systems at home. We're making sodas, sarsaparilla, ginger beer, whatever at home, and you can like serve it that way. This is killer for large batch events, if you guys ever get into that, and for carbonating cocktails too. These are rated to cover over 150 psi, these small ones. The big ones are rated for over 300 psi. So you're looking just fine when you're putting 60 psi in here. I mean, you know, be wary, but you know, you're good. You're good. So it's a little awkward, but I'm gonna take that off the table so we don't have fun things flying all over the place. There it goes. See? Okay. Oh yeah. That's happy. Nice. Okay. It's starting, everybody. It's starting. So, same with the water bottle. We're trying to get the gas out in a safe way without spraying everybody. There you go, making a mess everywhere. While that mellows out for a second, what are we doing here? Starting out supplies here. But it's the same concept as the smaller bottle, if not almost a little bit more efficient, because we have the ice in there already. As the CO2 is getting forced into the liquid, it's still chilling everything down. So we're able to put more CO2 in a shorter period of time. I'm pretty confident that after I'm able to degas this whole thing, that we'll be able to actually taste it right now. We can make it even more bubbly. That's the idea, right? As bubbly as possible. Now, what are some things that you guys might try carbonating after learning about this? Ginger beer? Anybody else? Carbonated Negroni? Yeah.
You said you made a carbonated old fashioned.
Yep.
I had somebody approach me about that idea. It sounds fucking awful to me.
Oh, it's not good. It's not good, and the other thing that you got to keep in mind is that when CO2 goes into solution, you're creating carbonic acid, so that it's going to be more sour. So immediately the old-fashioned was unbalanced. Yeah. It was like, why is this like sour and bitter now? And it's because you have to add more sugar to balance out the carbonic acid being produced with the alcohol. It was not good. The Negroni was not good. The carbonated Manhattan wasn't good. Any of those things were not good. But the carbonated margarita, good. Carbonated Negroni, also good. Carbonated carbonated bloody? Yeah. I did that. Didn't we do that at Tails? That's right. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, clarify. You could do the cranberry juice. So this is what this thing looks like right now. As it's like degassing, or we're letting the head come down. So it's all frothy, almost ready for us to enjoy. We're going to let it chill a little bit longer. But you can think about carbonating wines that aren't normally carbonated. A carbonated Pinot Grigio, perhaps. Carbonated Sauv Blanc. This is what it's looking like on inside of the keg. And just a little update of like what these things look like. Easy to travel with, easy to use. Huh? Oh, you've seen these before. What do you act like you don't work with me now? What, are we not friends?
Yeah, but these guys don't know.
Look at that. You got it. Any other ideas on what you guys might carbonate outside of this? Chocolate milkshake, that might be interesting. There you go. Paloma. Paloma's a great one. Yeah, mulled wine.
They used it for a New York sour.
Right on.
So the mulled wine in place of the wine.
In place of the wine topper. Yeah, that's a good idea too. But again, back to the kind of the reason why I'm here and talking to you guys is just to inspire y'all to do fun, dope shit with cool stuff that, like, it doesn't have to be wildly expensive, benchtop centrifuge, miles of carbonating stuff. I mean, I'm not making it look the most, the most not classy, but I guess sophisticated. But it's not supposed to be sophisticated. This is easily attainable things that we can do at each one of our programs if we want to. You know, if you want to put in the effort, and the effort is not much, you can create this stuff.